We are nuts.
We're
We have an idea in our head of something that will never ever happen. But little do they know that it's not just us that believes in this, but the powers that be in this state also believe the same exact thing.
Thank you.
And I want it, and I want to show you examples of how and why. Now, Bernie, he's a nice guy. He's an affable enough guy. You know, I'd love for him to be president of California. You know, he'd be great. Not in the beginning, maybe somewhere in the middle. I don't think he has the
After you learned about California.
right. But I think right now, we have Gavin Newsom, who has had independence on his mind since he was lieutenant governor. I'm not going to say how I know that or how I'm assuming that, but I do know that is a fact. I do know that's what they talk about. I do know they've read our materials. They've read the 9 steps from Yes California. They've read our initiatives. They've studied it. They've implemented some of our steps on how to become independent. Brown has. So they know we are a nation in itself. And what brings me to my head down is this week seeing Gavin Newsom kiss that orange turd ball ass on TV multiple times.
Yeah.
Just to get our people off of that boat.
Yep.
Because it's on international. It's on international
I
water. We can't do anything because we should have just done. He should have just got him off the boat. But he was being a statesman, and
the boat is registered is a Norwegian registry. It's an international ownership. Has to go through the federal government.
And it would have been a great. It would have been a great example if he just ignored the federal law and got people off. I agree. Got them off the boat, but
not only that, but he kissed Trump's ass and said, Trump did the right thing here. I commend him, and so he could have left the comments out. We didn't need the comments after that.
No, he was told to say that.
Right.
Trump made him say that.
It's
Trump said, "I want to hear this, and I want to hear you say that." And Gavin, man, I got to give him. I'll give him a pat on the back for taking one for the team on that one, man. I mean, that's a leadership right there. That's a true statesman right there, man. Because we all know how Gavin feels about this administration and the federal government. Yeah. And coming to see it, I don't know if you guys agree or not. Do you see Gavin eyeing for president of the United States, like to be positioning himself for that?
I see that. I hope not.
I can see a long-term political career for Gavin Newsom. I think and it's sort of the discussion also about like men like Tom Steyer.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, well, you're not going to be president of the United States, but I have a country for you. You might want to consider.
I would like that better if I were him.
So look, he's a millionaire, Steyer.
Every president is going to be a millionaire.
This organization knows its shares of wealthy people supporting it and what happens to them, and they do take a back seat. So I think what's going to happen to Steyer if he does support us is they're going to take his wealth away. They're going to take his assets away. The IRS is going to give him the hardest time ever. They're going to make him get on his knees until he stops. That's what's just going to happen whenever we have money behind us, guys. And it has to genuinely come from the people.
Yeah.
One like Bernie's doing.
Right.
It's got to genuinely come like that. We can't get bankrolled by a godfather, godmother. It's just not gonna. It's too much of a hit for them to take personally and financially.
So Shankar, I just wanted to ask Shankar, and then we can go back to the panel. But what we were saying, because you weren't here yet, we were saying that because of all these events happening, impeachment, then not getting impeached, then this whole thing with Bernie's, getting screwed again for the second time. All these events, coronavirus, you can add them up, and then in the near future, Trump being elected. We're saying that it's actually now starting to, especially for Bernie supporters, starting to hit home that independent California could be an option. You don't believe that from what you're saying?
Look, guys, I wish it was that easy to convince them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll get more numbers after all said and done after the election. Maybe.
It's not
But guys,
finished. You
we're-
guys aren't finished. You guys-
We're dealing with people that have been indoctrinated since the time they were 6 years old.
Yeah.
Every day for 8 hours, going to school, pledging allegiance, being taught that this country is the best in the world. We do the best in this. We're the best. Guys, it didn't take with us.
Well,
For
so
some reason, the programming didn't work with
but
us.
we were programmed that way. We came out of that programming, so
Because it
other
didn't
people
really
can't
take. It
program.
didn't stick on us. It sticks with my brother. It sticks. I hear his kids and my kids coming home from school. My kids know I don't stand for it, so they don't say anything anymore. But my brother's kids love Trump. They
Yeah, but
love
those-
him. He's
Those
the
are
leader.
lost
He's
causes.
the
We're not
leader
talking. We're
of-
talking about
of
Bernie
their
Sanders.
country.
They're not totally lost.
They don't
causes.
know about. They don't know about grab him by the pussy. They don't know about the war that we're in. Look, guys. I'm at my folks' home in the morning. One morning at 7:00 in the morning, I was there, and my nephew's having breakfast with my father, and Fox News is on, and they're talking about withdrawing troops out of Afghanistan, and so that you see a couple troops up there, soldiers on going around, and I'm looking at my nephew, and he's looking at the TV screen, and like he didn't know what the hell's going on. I'm like, gosh, you know what's going on? You know what you're watching? He's like, I have no idea what's going on. He's 10 years old, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, well, we're in a war right now. We are? Yeah, we've been in a war for over 20 years. A lot of our soldiers died. Those are our soldiers. They're in another country, attacking and killing those people in that country. Why? Now, my dad, Trump supporter, starts getting a little upset at me.
Of
Says,
course.
I'm propagandizing him. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm trying to tell him the truth. Maybe he might have been a little too young, but when is too young? In 8 years, that kid could be drafted and being in the desert holding an AR-15.
Hello.
This is what we're dealing with. This kid doesn't know. And I try to tell him, like, look, when you hit high school, they're going to try to take you. They're going to make you sign a form that says that when they need you, they will take you. They are? I'm like, yes. And of course, my dad was furious at me, but
Yeah, but you're talking about conservative. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders people convincing them.
dude,
They're
my,
not-
my 10-year-old
Bernie
is a
Sa-
10-year-old, bro.
Yeah, but Bernie Sanders don't believe in the wars and the things like that. They
But
have
there's
much
that
more in
indoctrination
common.
is still there. They still
I
believe
wouldn't
in the
even say
Constitution.
it's
I said,
We have
I'm good
we have a
at
little we have a little more
Yeah,
a little more of an in with the Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
crowd because
Yeah.
they've gotten comfortable with the term democratic socialism.
Uh-huh.
They've gotten
Dude.
comfortable, which is going against the programming that you and I.
Here's what's disappointing about that, though, real quick. Bernie was supposed to bring the young this election. He didn't.
The young
He was
don't-
supposed to
be
bring-
fair, the
I
young
just wanna say
don't
one
vote.
thing.
So
They did in
Well,
2016, man.
I've
They
got
did come out for him
I've got
in
a comment on
2016.
that.
Roll yourself in.
They've given up. They've given up on the process. They've given up. I think who you maybe we want to target would be the ones that don't vote anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would be the ones that just
The
don't
boycotters.
think it's useless. I don't know how we're gonna get to them, but
Well, I would like to comment on how your nephew
yeah.
is being indoctrinated.
Kiki, by the way.
My name's Kiki, Kirsten Connolly Bray. Please call me Kiki. I'd like to comment on that because what we have here is with a lot of Trump supporters. You have a lot of people, blue collar people. You have people who don't have a lot of higher education, and I'm a nurse, 20 years. I have my bachelor's of science, but what statistically has shown is that people who have less intelligence tend to believe their beliefs stronger. And I'm not saying your nephew's not intelligent, but he is only 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's being indoctrinated here. So then we have a situation that's really, really not good for our youth. But, this whole no child left behind. Yes, we're left behind. Our education system is being decimated by Betsy DeVos. Just decimated. And so research has shown is that the less IQ you have, the more you have in your beliefs, because the more intelligent people believe, the more you know, the more you don't know. Okay? I know as a nurse that I know a lot, but I also know, like maybe maybe 15%. I don't know how much, but I know there's so much more medicine out there, just DNA and just so many things. So that being said, people with higher intelligence have a more are more flexible and being able to change their beliefs versus somebody who has. And so then that's why you have these people who are Trump supporters, who are blue collar workers, who are just so ferociously, they talk about how his base is just solid. Everything he does is great. He has unwavering support. Okay, and that I also point to the fact that when Trump came along and he won all those states, all those blue collar states, the Rust Belt that he won, all those, that was because of a lot of blue collar backing. And we've just spent the last 4 years paying for him to go to his political rallies, which just really upsets me. I think that's an emoluments clause. We're paying for him to go to all these rallies
Well, I wouldn't know
to make more money.
You want to go for it, man.
Well,
That's all I've got to say on that subject.
I have 3 kids in that age bracket, this age bracket.
Cool.
24, 21, and 18.
Sign him up.
Okay, well, hold on. Talking to them about this stuff, about Bernie and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, for the most part, they could care less.
That's a good input.
No, honestly, they could. It would be hard to care more. My son, my oldest son, just turned 21. He's sitting back going, I just want to get my life together. I just want to get my life.
Right.
I want to. He wants gas. He wants to put gas in his gas tank.
Sure.
And he wants to basically take his girlfriend out to dinner, and he wants to get a place of his own, and he wants to get his life going, and he wants a career, and he wants to not be thinking about these things. Bernie Sanders, it's like listening to Bernie Sanders for him.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. Because Bernie is fighting the same fight. He's 21 now. Bernie's fighting the same fight he heard when he was 17, turning 18. Bernie's still fighting the same fight. And obviously not going to win.
Yeah.
Obviously not going to win. So the only thing so you have these people who are, like I said, 17, 18. Our 18-year-old, he just turned 18. Bless his heart, he was working on the Andrew Yang campaign.
Wow, that's impressive.
He was doing stuff for Andrew Yang. Because he said, universal basic income. He would like to make his. He would like to make his career in the film industry.
Hmm.
Well, universal basic income would go great guns to help someone starting off in the film industry.
Support them while they're getting the process together.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
But these, it's like, and our daughter, 24, she wants to become a teacher. Mm-hmm. She's going through basically student teaching now.
Okay.
None of them can get ahead.
Yeah.
None of them can get ahead.
But
none of them can.
I can't get ahead, and I'm 51.
But on that, I will not give the youth an excuse of that because most of us, I think, when we were young, I was politically active. I mean, the draft, Reagan was putting back the draft. I was just 20 years old, and I was fucking going and saying that. So just to say, we want to get, all youths want to get their life. We did back then too. We'd rather be going out with a girlfriend, cruising, the boulevard, shit and stuff. It's not an excuse to say that youth.
It is not.
And there's a lot lot of youth that are involved. Actually.
When I went to college, it was significantly less. I walked out with $6,000 in debt in 1992.
Well, but this is why they should be concerned right now more than we were.
It's not just.
They should be.
But it's not just the 10-year-old. It's not just the 10-year-old who really couldn't be bothered with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the 10-year-old. It's not just who doesn't know anything.
Yeah, but I heard my parents talking about politics, and it made me aware of them.
Now, when we talk about the California independence movement with them, and 2 of the 3 are already on board with us. Their attitude and the one that we cultivate here, rather than this, image of Washington as a disaster, which it is. I mean, their coronavirus read is really funny. I'll get to that
It's
in a
just a
moment.
disaster.
Well, I'll get to
I'm
that
a
in a
nurse.
moment. But the way to get to them, the way to get to these people is basically to hit them with, you can't get things together because of them.
Right.
Right. It's like the U.S. Like I said, the U.S. Congress.
You're getting shot up at school.
U.S. Congress
Because-
couldn't responsibly order pizza and get it right.
Right.
They say they run the best country in the world. We wouldn't trust these guys to walk our dogs.
We're being investigated by Amnesty International for one of the largest wealth income gaps in the world.
The hope,
Okay?
These guys' hope is that if government moves home, they can eventually not have to worry about it, and they can start worrying about their own lives again.
Who wants to move home at 20?
Well, I'll tell you, it's like so I'm going to leave here, and let me just say to this August panel, if I have to be quarantined with a bunch of people, I can't think of finer people to be quarantined with.
Oh, back at you.
We may just be stuck in this house for another 14 days.
Distance.
I'm waiting for like some van to come down with like a light and a. You cannot come out of your house anymore until we come back.
Well, my darling kids, it's like, and bless them on this, because I can't shoot them. They come in, and they walk by the television. They look, and there's this, the CNN thing with the coronavirus, and the USA map with the red circles,
Right.
and the outbreak points, and everyone's talking in dour things and showing pictures of no toilet paper on the shelves.
Yeah.
Right.
And my kids are coming. My kids walk in the store, and they look at this thing. And go, I don't see what the big deal is. It's not even like it's lethal unless you're like 60 or over. I mean, this wouldn't be a problem at all. I mean, it's like one of those. And I'm sitting there going, I'm 59. Guys, you get this and bring it home.
Well, you're talking about the COVID
Well, we
virus.
have-
They do not have all the information, okay? They don't have all the information on transmission. They don't have all the information on incubation. They don't have all the information on how much is it statistically lethal. It was coming out of China at 2%. Can we trust those Chinese numbers? 2.3% lethality. Your basic flu and cold has a lethality of 0.5. 0.2 to 0.5 per 100,000 people, percentage-wise. And we're talking about the COVID virus having somewhere between 2 to 3%. And that's coming out of China. And we haven't really seen how true first world countries that actually give out first numbers, what their lethality is coming in at.
The punchline with my kids on this
Yeah.
was then they shrugged and went to the movies.
Totally like, oh man, that's harsh. I love you. I love you.
Let me hear
Just,
Shanghai real quick.
Check our go.
Just in regards to coronavirus, you guys, again, we step back and just look at the larger picture of what's happening here with the virus. The coronavirus is this is another form of the same virus that hit us about 3 years ago. It's the same
SARS.
family as Ebola.
No, it isn't.
Every
SARS.
time SARS, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It goes away, it evolves, it adapts, it comes back. Guys, let's just look at this. Now, I believe that Earth is a living, breathing organism. It's a living thing.
That's easy to
And
understand.
living things like you and me, when there's something infecting it, our body naturally fights it. It puts out white blood cells and fights the infection. And this strain that's out right now, killing people and making people sick, is just Earth's white blood cell taking care of business right now, because look at what's happening.
Ow.
Look at what's happening, especially with global warming. And it's global warming is why this virus, even how it got created, from what I'm hearing. From what I'm hearing about the 5G waves,
Those are
Amy
all
knows more about it than me.
rumors,
It was
about that.
transmitted
But-
via, it was a zoological transfer from us, some weird animal handler in China.
No.
And ends
This
up
is
in
human.
here.
This is from a. This is all. This is.
It's
the
from
human.
a bat, actually. It
So-
initially started initially found the organism in a mammal.
Okay, so this virus is hitting, and look at what they're all making us do: stay home, stay in for 2 weeks, don't go out. Businesses are shutting down. What's that doing as far as global warming? Now we're using less fuel. We're using less
Yay.
electricity.
Yay.
Businesses are closing, so now we're actually cooling the earth off a little bit.
We need a
Maybe.
lot more than that.
Everybody is. The entire planet is doing this. Maybe it's just meant to happen, and it's going to work itself out. Maybe it's going to come out, take out the 50 million people it needs to do, and then go away on its own.
The
Well,
COVID,
there's gonna be another one that
COVID
comes
virus
out.
has not been shown to be
Well, if
affected
you're
by
using
whether it's hot or
divine
cold. It's
intervention.
still as lethal in Antarctica as it is on the
I don't
equator.
know.
So whether the Earth cools or heats does not really affect whether the COVID virus lives or
That
dies.
works for me.
I'm not saying that either.
I don't know. Well, it seems to me that you were saying it was kind of hot, and that,
Sorry.
that,
Sorry,
that
Al.
because it's so hot, we're going to have this
just gonna be
increase
one of
in
the
the
second
virus,
No, no, no,
and
no,
that
no,
once
no.
the planet cools and we stop moving, that's going to decrease the virus.
10 more minutes.
That's what I got from it. I'm sorry. Maybe I
That's not what I
misunderstood
said.
you. I
You know what?
misunderstood
We're
you.
gonna
then.
live
I said the
better
virus
because of your.
It's way of fighting.
10 minutes. and
Let
we're
me
gonna
give
talk
a
about
couple of
Oh, yeah,
example
forget
or
that.
two of other
going to the
diseases.
Libertarian Party convention and
Oh,
how we were
oh.
welcomed with open arms. 10
Yeah.
minutes, and then we're going to move to
Oh,
Parliament.
I'm good. I mean, that's it. You guys
Okay,
tell
real
me.
quick.
Yeah, I
Wally,
pretty
one
much
more thing
said
on the
what
corona.
I
One thing,
said.
one
Yeah,
thing on the
no.
corona, real quick, before Kiki
Dominates the conversation.
tries to.
No, before she shuts you down, you mean?
I was just trying to clarify things. I
One more thing on the coronavirus, guys, and this is
Excuse me.
this is a huge wake up call. I hope for Americans and capitalism, and its utter failures, because Italy seems to have their shit on point. They seem to have taken care of business over there, at least, and somewhat.
Not really. They just closed their borders.
Yeah,
and
they
shit.
did.
But they're the same thing. They ignored it just like we did,
Sure.
and they've given us the same warning, and they're saying we're just on par to go in 10 days to be where they are.
But you got to
And
realize,
so
Italians only work 4 days a week. They work 6-hour days, if that. Take a lot of breaks. They have lots of leave, vacation time, lots of sick time. It doesn't affect their economy.
Right.
Here,
it's gonna
people
have an effect.
are worried about taking days off of work. They're worried about missing the
Yes.
work.
Right.
What about the people that don't have any health care? These are all legitimate concerns.
Those are
and I
good
think hopefully this is a
points.
wake-up call for those.
Those,
Even
good,
folks
those are
that
good points for
do-
California.
Even
not for
folks
the
that do
rest.
have health care,
You know?
if you don't get days, if your job isn't to where you can take a paid anything,
That is a good point.
right. I'm a rideshare driver. I can't take,
No, you
Hey,
can't. A lot of
anything.
people can't.
right. That's a very common situation.
Not to mention you have no ability to not deal with the public.
That's right. That's right.
You can't stay home and phone in your Uber driver.
That's right. Now, as
Remote
far
control.
Have you noticed a
as
decline in business the past couple of days?
yes, I've had to work longer to stack the bills.
We went out to dinner last night in Hollywood right here. We went to this restaurant. It's packed every Saturday night. I mean, it's packed.
Mm.
Dude, there's only 3 tables taken in one of them.
Yeah, I noticed that
Same thing.
it wasn't as hard to get here as it usually is. From,
Oh, the traffic was
from 100 kilometers
like
away.
I said,
Yeah.
guys, we're using a lot less.
Well, you're talking about coronavirus as being sort of a natural antibody kind of reaction. I
Yeah.
can give you 2 even more interesting examples that really follow that pattern. Ever heard of valley fever?
Valley fever?
Yeah.
Yes. I've heard of it.
Yes. My oldest son had valley fever, and it dogs him to this day.
It's very
And he doesn't dare get coronavirus because then the valley fever will kick back up.
No,
He has a compromised immune system because of valley fever. His wife doesn't because she was raised in Fresno. Well, okay. The reason I bring up valley fever is this. When did it start to be a problem? And it's very similar to West Nile virus, the same phenomenon. Life cycle. You start out with, heavy rains, and then it grows in the soil, right?
Yeah,
And then things start to dry out,
right.
which they didn't used to until the San Joaquin River
Oh,
was
right.
pumped
I know
dry.
where you're going. Right.
When the San Joaquin River was a flowing river, you didn't have valley fever. It stayed in the ground. Now it's being pumped out to the Central Valley agribusiness, And so after the heavy rain, you have the soil drying out and the spores are formed.
Sure.
Why is it called West Nile virus? It came from the West Nile. It came from the western portions of the Nile Delta, which used to be renewed every year by the floods. When they built the Aswan High Dam, that stopped. And the Nile River started to get salt poisoning. And that's when the spores formed. Very similar to what happened
Interesting.
in Central Valley when the San Joaquin was dried up.
Go for it.
No, I was going to say it's like you said something. You touched on something earlier where this virus, the COVID-19 coronavirus. Yeah, it's sort of a SARS 2.0, 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
It's another version of that. There's a question mark that says if we're handling it the way, if it's being this badly handled at this stage of the game, where this one has the potential to be bad, but maybe not like global pandemic, millions of people die bad. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We're not really sure. But if this is 2.0 on SARS, what happens when we hit,
2.0
on this?
on a
4.
Right.
Ebola 4.0.
yeah.
Right. Tecate virus.
How does the government behave?
Mm-hmm.
How does the government behave? And it's like we're seeing a pattern here where smaller countries, from a California standpoint, smaller countries, smaller governments, or more direct governments are able to react faster.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Are able to react better to this. From a California standpoint, that's we had the cruise ship. I generally speaking try in these not to say the word Trump because I don't want to give that as the reasoning, but the logic behind all this. It's like Trump is not. Trump is the symptom, not the disease. That
Right.
sort of thing is
Right.
more,
There's a more fundamental
is
problem.
more where I'm at. The fundamental problems that we face are bigger than this large incompetent person. The response that was able to be ginned up from the federal government on a federal level because of the way it's set up. And honestly, it may not have mattered whether it was Trump or President Hillary Clinton or whoever. It was an inadequate response because it was geared to be that way. The first order of business for the federal government was to basically sit on its hands for a little while to see if it was worth motivating this entire large structure to face the virus down. First, you have to see if it was worthwhile. Well, if you give that point to Mr. Trump, he's just going to, well, at first I just wanted to see if this was actually going to be a thing. Well, he waited a month.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What happens on the next one? Smaller governments react faster.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Singapore was a good example on this one.
Singapore was a good example on this one.
Well,
It's
they
like
raised number 2
versus China itself,
right, too big.
which was
China's huge.
China's huge. Which first they tried to determine if it was worthwhile to even talk about, and then they denied that they had a problem, and then it spread, and then they said maybe we do, and then they tried to mobilize it, and and it got out of hand quickly.
It's like trying to turn the Titanic to avoid the.
Well, that's it. Yeah, there's a certain amount. If you're in a smaller ship,
Mm-hmm.
you can look forward and go, is that an iceberg? It's like, I don't care what it is. Maybe we should turn now anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Maybe we should do something.
Yeah.
Speaking of icebergs, man, there is a virus out there that's turning deer into zombies and killing them. It literally eats their brains slowly, and they start walking all weird. And get this, so these deer are going into pasteurized in lands that were previously covered by snow, glaciers, which melted away now. All of a sudden, they just melted, right? Which opened up these new lands for them to graze on. Well, these viruses that have been buried there for millions of years are now available for these deer. They've been eating they ate it, starts eating their brains, and now they're finding all of these thousands of deers.
They're dying in the ancient time.
Yeah.
From this ancient zombie virus that's out there. I just want to say when you said iceberg, I was like, oh yeah.
It was just,
Mad deer.
yeah. I'll apologize in advance because that almost brings up the joke. It's like, and then they went to Trump conventions.
Make the Arctic great again.
Libertarians.
Well,
5 more minutes.
I think all
That's-
like F.H. Buckley's book, American Secession, which mentioned us. He goes through all these metrics of happiness for countries, and one of the biggest ones is bigness versus smallness.
Yes.
And like Denmark is usually rated near the top of some of the there's a whole
Switzerland.
book. There's a whole
There's up
book
there.
called The Happiest Place or The Year of Living
Finland?
The Year of Living Danishly is a
Singapore.
great book. It's a
Yeah.
great book about the reasons Danish people generally are pretty happy, and it's just it like you said, it's easier to respond to crises when it's a smaller. If any system is more manageable when it's smaller,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of the panic and
Both
stuff.
economically and from a humanistic standpoint.
We've got to evolve ourselves as a species to get past this territory mindset, this resource ownership mindset to even get there, man. I mean, well,
To get to smaller
yeah.
states.
Everybody wants big. Everybody wants more.
No, I understand. Yeah, but I think what you're saying is actually going in a different direction from smaller.
I'm saying people need to evolve a little bit more to realize that hey, maybe a lot isn't more.
Well,
Maybe less is more.
I think the discussion. Is a
Okay.
little. There's an element in this discussion that's a little strange to us, and we need to. It's like if we look at Denmark and we look at like Norway and we look at some of the countries. I mean, first off, these are countries that have a high degree of happiness and a high degree of well-being and a high standard of living, with what amounts to extremely low natural resource, especially compared to some place like the United States.
Sure.
Yeah, some of them.
It's
yeah.
it's because it's purposed right. We've had this discussion, and it's a sort of a conservative liberal discussion, which are terms that, if I had my way, I would love to outlaw in a new independent California. It's like because these terms have lost all meaning. Big government, small government is kind of the same thing. When you have a government like the United States government that has to deal with all these regions and has to have rules and everything in place to deal with all of this. It's like you have to have a FEMA that can not only deal with wildfires, but can also it has to deal with hurricanes. You have to have this structure you have to have this massive structure.
Yeah.
The part that deals with hurricanes does the people who have wildfires very little good.
Yeah.
But it costs them a lot of money. The one that has to deal with, and vice versa. What big government, small government, what those countries have in common, generally speaking, is that they're small enough. They have enough government. They don't necessarily have